Recording in progress.
All right, call to order at 6 o'clock. Tracy's taking roll, so we will stand for the pledge. All right, review, revise, and approve our agenda. Are there any changes to the agenda? No. Is there a motion to approve our agenda? Tina and Arlene. Seconded by Arlene, sorry. Any public comment?
We do have public comment. Nope.
For non-agenda, for just this agenda item. That's all right. All right, all in favor? Opposed? It's unanimous. All right, we approve the minutes from the board meeting of January 28th. Is there a motion to approve the minutes? Ann, is a first, second? Tina? Any public comment on this agenda item? All right, all in favor? Opposed? It's unanimous. As to all trustees present. All right, now we're on to the correspondence. We have written correspondence. Everyone should have gotten a link in their email that Tracy sent out. On to 5B, which is public comment. So this is the public comment portion of the meeting is set aside for the public to address the board as a body. It is not a time for board response or for the public to ask questions. Do not infringe on the privacy or the rights to privacy of others. Please sign in and spell first and last name. Comments are limited to 3 minutes per speaker. Chair or acting chair may interrupt or terminate the individual speaker if the statements are out of order or over 3 minutes or are personally directed at individuals. Do we have any public comment?
We do. First we have Tim Bajent.
Oops. Yeah, go ahead and press the add. Oh, I don't think it's quite on yet. No, you got to press your button. A little red thing will light up here. It's a little guy that looks like he's speaking there. You good? Okay. Could you speak a little closer to your mic? You're not coming through for the crowd. Thank you. Push the thing down. There we go.
We good on this one?
That's it. Thank you.
Okay. Does my 3 minutes start over? I'll start over. Okay. Timothy Bajent. Bajent, Bravo Alpha India Golf Echo November Tango. I was here 2 weeks ago and addressed you guys. Thank you so much for just taking the time to listen to me, and I appreciate that. I did get one response from somebody thanking me for my time, and I thank you for your time. In the last 2 weeks, one of the things I've attempted to do is try to figure out how do I, as a non-board member, get something like weighted grades up to you to be able to make a decision. I haven't been able to figure that out through the website. I've called multiple people in the office here and have not been able to figure that out. So I'm here again today just to try to figure that out. I know you can't respond to me, but what I'm going to do is hopefully say email wasn't the way to do that. So I'm just going to hang out here when everything's open and just hope that somebody can come and tap me on the shoulder and say, hey, this is what you do. Again, my goal here is to really help the kids get into better schools, get better scholarships. I want you guys to be the heroes. I want to help you do it. I want nothing in return. As a matter of fact, if I can just stay quiet in the background, that's my favorite thing. But I'm just going to hang out back here when it's done, and I hope that somebody can just give me some guidance. That's all I'm looking for. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Other public comment?
Next we have Chad Villegas. Close enough.
Okay. Are we good here? Okay.
Hi, sorry, it's the first time I've been here. Chad Villegas. The L's are silent. You did a great job, thank you. I am a parent of a Big Sky student and the vice president of the Native American PAC group here. And I as well, and along with Timothy Bagent, am interested in, kind of the conversation of weighted averages. There are other schools within the state of Montana that do that. And I'm intrigued and trying to understand why we don't, and if there is, sorry, I know I'll talk down to here, of what that is. My daughter at Big Sky has had to pull out of the HSA program due to the fact of her, by doing that, can get better grades that way. And unfortunately, a lot of the things we're looking at for scholarships require or actually have weighted averages of schools that she's looking at. And unfortunately, soccer scholarships don't pay for a lot if we can so get them. So my hope is also too that maybe Missoula Public Schools can look at that. And so that as well I'd be interested in. Tim's kind of my conduit, so I guess if there's that conversation, that'd be great. And that was it. Did I do it right? Sorry, am I good? Okay, thank you.
Thank you, appreciate it. Other public comment? No worries. No other public comment. All right. Thank you very much. All right. On to number 6, which is reports. And we'll go on to our student trustee reports. This is a fun day each month. So we're going to start with Big Sky.
Hi guys, I hope you guys are doing well. Again, because I see some new faces, my name is Aspen Garnier and I'm from Big Sky. And just a couple of things that have happened in the past month. We had finals week, and on that Friday, our school does an intervention day, and our National Honor Society put together a pancake breakfast for the teachers at our school. We had 20 students helping along, and we fed more than 40 teachers just to say thank you for what they did. We had all of our materials donated for this, which we were very thankful for to our community. Last weekend was GOAT, as most of you guys know. We were very fortunate to take home Gertie. Along with that, our boys defeated Sentinel, which was such a big thing because they've been working so hard all season for that. Our theme was Rio, and we had such a large number of students in attendance, and we just cannot be more proud of everyone who showed up. For swimming, we are sending 4 individuals to state swimming this weekend, and along with that, for wrestling, we're sending 22 individuals to state. This is doubled from last year. Last year, we only sent 12, so we were very, very excited about that. And then a little bit on the academic side, our Health Science Academy is putting together a trivia night. And this is a night it's a themed night, it's a jazz night. And we are going to have a cash prize at the end for who wins. And it's a split the pot, so half the pot goes to help fundraising for our HSA just to do field trips and all that other stuff. And then lastly, our Key Club and HSA are teaming up to put together a team for the Polar Plunge. We actually have 2 teams this year. Each team raises $500, and all the proceeds go to the Special Olympics, and we are super excited to do this. And it takes place at the Grizz Pool on February 22nd. Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much. Hellgate.
Hello, everyone. My name is Faith Yu. I'm the student body president at Hellgate High School. To start, we have a lot of our musicians in orchestra, band, as well as choir headed to All Northwest in Washington next week. We also have our APS, Advanced Problems in Science, headed to Salt Lake City this Friday, actually, to present their research that they've conducted everywhere from MIT to the University of Montana. We also had our class cup assembly last week. This was kind of like a replacement for GOAT, as we were involved in it this year. It was really great. We had a week full of really fun events, including pie eating, actually, and our assembly was a really great conclusion to that. We have some state champions for speech and debate at our school, specifically for the public forum event. Our IB English IOs have also started with our primary English teacher. And for our student government, we have a new media team. We have 2 new members, and they're currently editing our Hellgate Happenings, which is like our weekly broadcast. They've also started a new Instagram account called Hellgate Athletics, and they're also running our Hellgate Student Government account. This is for us to be able to kind of, I guess, have more roles for more people who want to be involved, specifically those who are gifted creatively. And we're going to have these positions going on for the years going on, I guess. And then for an NHS event, we also had a Morgan's Message dedication game a few weeks back. This is to raise awareness for mental health amongst athletes. So this was another big hit, and we love to see our students have their own initiatives that they're passionate about.
Hello everybody, I'm Stella Harbord and I'm the senior class at Hellgate High School. And just continuing on with what Faith said relating to basketball, we had a record-breaking attendance last week and we would like to give a lot of that to Class Cup. We had over 130 students join, especially for our girls game, which is big because we really want to make sure that our girls are just as much as supported in our boys games, and often there's a higher attendance at the men's games. So we're really excited to beat Big Sky. It was very close games, but in those two games. And then after that, we also did Freezing for a Reason this week, which is where classes are able to nominate a specific person, and then that person gets dunked in a freezing cold bucket of ice. But the money that is utilized for their votes goes directly to the Poverello Center. So we're really excited to continue that tradition on this year. We also have a crosstown game against Sentinel this week, which we're looking forward to a lot. And we also have progress on our mascot, which we've been working really hard to get an updated mascot for our school. And we have opened up just a way for parents to donate and stuff like that, since we still haven't raised all the money that we're going to need, but we do have a draft of what it's going to look like, and we've been able to include a lot of students in that art piece. And then we also have a wrap-up on our mural competition, which has been really exciting. The ZAC hosted us last week, where students were able to display their artwork and people were able to vote, and then that money is going directly towards the mural in our school as well as artist supplies. And then finally, we also have gotten grad courts finalized, as well as some other graduation plans relating to our speaker and just like some traditions that relate to graduation, such as like senior sunset and things like that. So thank you.
Meg, you got a question?
I think my button. Thanks for sharing that, guys. I personally really enjoy all the Instagram accounts that MCPS students are running and teachers. I find them really awesome. But quick question maybe, Assistant Superintendent Chaddock, when you guys open an Instagram account that's an official MCPS representing a school, is there a process, or do you have to like get the pictures checked off by a teacher before you post?
Yeah, so for Hellgate specifically, we coordinate with our activities director, Nick Latch, and he kind of looks through everything first. But we don't usually have to vet it with our advisors. They trust us to not post anything too awful. So it's usually just to raise awareness for events that are going on. So, we're vetted through a process before we have access to those accounts. So that's our process.
And also, Nick Latch also has like the login on his own phone. So if something is ever like, maybe we shouldn't put that out there, or there's too much school competition, which we do try to avoid, and we try to remain unbiased, he's able to take down any posts or delete any student comments that we might miss.
Thank you. All right. Celie Swan. Oh, I'm sorry, Lisa. Do you want to have a question?
Yeah, thank you. I just wanted clarification on the mascot. Are you changing from the Knights or getting an updated graphic design?
Oh, we're just raising money to have an actual costume for someone to be our mascot. We know Big Sky as well as Sentinel has one, but we haven't had one in a couple years, so we just want to have some more hype and someone to do that for us at basketball games and football games.
Okay, cool. Thanks.
All right. Great stuff. Celie Swan. Not on. All right. Sure hard at homework. I love that. All right. Sentinel High School. There's a lot of homework going on. I love it. Willard.
Hi, I'm Truman, representing for Willard. This is my first time doing this, so bear with me. Let's see. Some things that happened recently. We had 21 new students accepted into our third quarter, which is awesome. And we have a bunch of new classes, such as a film class, decorated humans arts class, meditation class. And then with the film class, students are able to earn a production certificate, which is super great and could help with future work credit or whatever they need that for. And then for our school staff, they have been working on creating an MIP diversion program. So the staff are meeting with addiction counselors and discussing the curriculum and support for the substance recovery program. As of today, we've had 8 new students that have benefited from the diversion programs, which is great. And they were able to successfully complete all the requirements and get their records expunged. And then staff are also meeting with schools around the country to get possible substance support options for other students. And then in the school, we got a new coffee cart. It's called the Crow's Nest. And we're partnered with Drum Coffee, and they're doing a little barista training with the students and staff, which is super cool. And then we had a school-wide ski day up at Lookout a while ago, or let's see, was it a few weeks ago? And then the students that weren't able to attend that got to go skating, so there's something for everybody there. And then we have another ski day coming up in March. And then our culinary students have been working with local chefs to create different recipes and just learn sort of a little bit more about how to cook. And then Logjam and Top Hat are interested in partnering with us to create job opportunities and then a little more training for students, and that'll be over the summer. And then let's see. So we received a donation, Willard just received a donation of $11,700, which is super cool. And so that is going to go towards a safe housing fund to provide families and students with emergency rental and utility assistance. And then we also got another donation for $6,000 to help with post-secondary training and certifications. So like driver's education and other of the sort. And then, let's see, so our art teacher, Joanna Laporte, she got some of our students submitted into the Visual Arts Show. And Soren Spencer, one of our students, won an award for their work, which is super, super nice. And you can go check the work out at the Social Science Visual Arts Gallery. It's room 107. And then we have another end of the year sort of work show off here at the first Friday of April 4th. And then it's going to be at the Conflux event space. And then, yeah, I don't know. We have a bunch of teachers that are willing to put in time and like outdoor effort or just out of school effort towards clubs and stuff. So I believe we have 12 teachers, all just putting in their own time and resources into helping students that are interested in trying new things. So I don't know, I'm just very thankful for Willard, so yeah, thank you.
Excellent. Great job, Truman, and all student trustees. Appreciate that. All right, on to 6B, which is announcements from our own superintendent, Micah Hill.
Thank you, and good evening, trustees. A few announcements tonight. The first one I thought I would talk about is school closures, snow days. You know, I know you're going to find it hard to believe, but sometimes every decision I make is not met with gratitude and optimism, because not everybody agrees. But I think it helps to have a broader understanding of what goes into a decision around school closures and snow days. And the first thing you need to know, it's not a decision made in isolation. We work with our transportation partner, Beach, and their ability to be able to run buses For reference, they would say for a diesel bus, they can operate up to about 20 below. So that's kind of like the temperature standard. I'm not saying that that's safe, right, or anything. I'm just telling like that's what they've told us. And they rely on city and county road reports and the ability of our city agencies to move snow, clear snow, safe routes, all of that kind of stuff. We're also looking at cumulative weather conditions. So it's not just a matter of is it cold, but is it blowing and drifting snow? How much snow? What kind of accumulation? All of those different things. And then obviously emergency orders. We got to experience that in the middle of the day last week. And the city, county put out a emergency travel, or it wasn't even emergency, it was essential travel, but they were responding to a felony situation, and so an inordinate number of their officers were deployed to deal with that, and so they would have fewer officers available to assist with traffic accidents or different things that might happen. So it's a big thing, but some of the things that when we also consider this and when people don't understand is the impact to the community. When you're an employer with 1,500 employees and 9,500 students, when we close, the ripple effect through our community is felt. It is felt by our hospitals who are providing life-saving care. It is felt by our emergency responders. It is felt by our critical workforce, people who might otherwise be out plowing roads and doing other things. We impact other schools. We have a lot of employees who work in other districts or have children in other districts. It affects our hourly employees, our classified employees who lose a day's wage when we close our schools, and that affects their livelihoods. It also affects the social welfare of our students who come to our schools and need meals twice a day. And these are warm places, they're safe places. We address social emotional care. There's a whole list of things. There's also an impact to the year-end calendar. If we do happen to make a decision to close, that's a day we're adding into the end of the school year. So we start thinking about how could that affect graduation? What if it were multiple days that we had to be closed? So these are big issues for us. There are factors that are not considered, and this may be hard for some people to hear, but we don't consider the distance that someone lives from our schools to be that factor. We recognize that we have staff who live outside of our community. I have a daughter-in-law who teaches in Frenchtown, lives in Missoula. I get to hear it from her. When I was a younger man and my kids were younger, they were like, "Come on, Dad, snow day." And I'm like, "No, we're not doing that." I get that. I also don't take into account the experience level of teenage drivers. Yes, it's a real thing. We know that weather conditions can hamper driving conditions, but I can't 100% guarantee the safety of a kid on any given day, let alone a snow day or a day where there's snow or other adverse weather conditions. I also don't consider what other districts are doing. We all talk, we have conversations around this. They obviously are very concerned about what we do because we're so much larger, but they live further afield. They may not be on the priority for plowing out in their neighborhoods. There might be a whole bunch of other things that they're trying to consider as they wrestle with the decision to do this or not. So I say all those things, and partly because I get emails, I get anonymous letters left in my mailbox about people who would say, like, well, you're completely discounting the safety of students and you're completely discounting the safety of staff. And my response to that is, everybody has the ability to make a decision. A parent has the ability to make a decision about whether or not to put their teenage driver in a car and send them down the road in winter conditions. Every adult has the ability to make a decision. If I live so far out and it's blowing and drifting and it's not safe, you need to call in and let our administration know. Take a personal day. There's so many things I can't account for in making this decision. And so for trustees who maybe get the questions, or trustees who are asking me the questions, or our community, I just want people to know it's not a decision made lightly, and we're taking a lot of different things into account. So I know that may not be the thing that everybody wants to hear, but that is the reality of making that decision. So, yeah.
Just a clarifying question. Thank you for all of that information. And I got a lot of feedback that how appreciated hearing a heads up about this week was and getting that text this morning. I have heard it so many times today. Can families in the district expect a text before 6:30 if it's going to be a closure going forward?
I think if we're considering that, I'm looking out at like a week's forecast or a winter weather storm warning or something that's coming through. And if it seems like it might be in question, then yes, we would put something out. But for every day, probably not.
Just a follow-up. More so, if there is a closure, can they expect to receive a text from the district rather than have to kind of like search the news or look online on Instagram? Can they be sure that if there's a closure, they'll get a text?
Yeah, we'll either put it on our website, text message, or social media. And then also we would notify our news agencies, and yeah, we have a whole protocol for that. But yes. So the best way I could respond is if you don't hear anything, assume that school is running as usual. Yeah. Thanks. Other things going on in the district, we had our Community Education Summit yesterday. It was awesome. It was a huge success. We have lots of partners, the college, Office of Public Instruction, presenters from other districts and within our community. And just want to say a special thank you to all those who helped make that day a success. When you think about putting on professional development and multiple opportunities for staff, regardless of position, teacher, administrator, custodian, paraprofessional, we had something for everybody, and it was very well received. We got great feedback again from that, and so for everybody that helped, thank you. And I know we had some trustees there, so appreciate your attendance as well, and we're glad that you were able to do that. Upcoming, we do have 3-on-1s coming up, and it's really going to be 3-on-2 because the esteemed colleague of mine, Mr. McHugh, will be meeting with us as well to talk a little bit in more detail about budgets and things moving forward on that front. Yep, super exciting. We have a trustee site visit to Willard this week. Also on Monday, February 17th is a day of advocacy being sponsored by the MFPE. So I know our union president, Mr. Shook, is planning to be there. We've got a bus full of teachers going down. I intend to be there supporting educators and advocating for public schools. So excited about that. We are starting to see some of the effects of the executive orders that have been coming out, and I just cringe every time I get into the news because it seems like there's something else. But one area that we just saw today was the DNRC grants that we have for urban forestry to plant trees at Jefferson and Porter. Everything's been put on pause for now, so it's kind of a wait and see on some of those. Our students mentioned this, but I got to judge the GOAT game on Friday. That's probably the hardest job in the world, just so you know, for the 5 judges, but was so proud of our kids, our staff, and our community. If you haven't been, it's a great event, just showcasing sportsmanship and camaraderie and just great displays of what it means to be a part of our public schools. Congrats to Big Sky. They pulled out the win for Gertie the Goat, and it was handed off without incident this year. The goat was not broken and no bloodshed, so we're getting it dialed in. And then just final thanks for our trustees who have been advocating with our legislator. I know there's been a lot of work going on in our community and a lot of outreach to our local legislators and our committees. For those who came down to the Day of Advocacy that was sponsored by MTSBA and the CAMPS Coalition, it's really meaningful. It's really powerful when it's not just the superintendent, but when other elected officials are making contact with them and saying, hey, we have a voice and we want to be heard too. So keep up the great work on that front. It's February 11th, and the session ends in a month and a half. So we're getting close. And those are my announcements for tonight.
Thank you, Micah. And yeah, if you're not following Jenny to keep up to date on what's going on, she's a machine, I'm telling you. I know everything I need to know by following Jenny, so look for her on Instagram. Arlene's doing a great job too. Yep. Okay, on to item 7, our consent agenda. This is a no board discussion for consent agenda item, as they are routine items. If any member of the board wishes to discuss a consent agenda item, there must be a motion made, seconded, and voted upon to move the item onto the agenda. So, the topic, our one topic today is approve early literacy enrollments for students under the age of 5. Can I get a motion for this? Meg, moved by Meg, second by Jenny. And may I have a no board discussion? Is there any public comment on this? No public comment that I can see. So all in favor, please raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4. Oh, you're right. It's elementary only. All right. All opposed? It's unanimous. Thank you. All right. Old business. Approve item 8A. Approve the 2025-2026 school calendars. And I'm going to pass it off to you, Trevor.
All right. Thank you. As you recall, last time we had a good discussion about 2 calendar options for next school year. One being with spring break in March, aligned with the University of Montana, and another option for April. So I believe Superintendent Hill has, if he doesn't, I have the numbers in front of me.
Okay, if you got the numbers, I do have it, but I can't get it to cast because I'm sharing this screen.
So as a result of our conversation, we went and surveyed parents, students, and staff across the district, and we had it open for, I think, just about a week or so. It closed yesterday, and we gave a couple notices to folks along the way. So we had 2,316 parents, 798 students, and 615 staff members, for a total of 3,729 for responses. The option was March or April, and March won out with 2,163 votes, and April had 1,566. That's a 58% to 42% margin. That's with all groups combined. The parent group was 55-45 for March. The student group was 77 to 23% March, and the staff group was 46% to 54% April. So a slight, the staff group was the only group selecting April. So that's the result of the survey, and really at this point what I'm hoping for is a motion to select one of the 2 calendars based on that data or your further discussion.
Thanks, Trevor. Questions from trustees? Jenny?
I got a lot of feedback how much people appreciated being able to have a voice in that decision. I also heard from a lot of people that they just didn't know why we were thinking about the shift. So I think in the future we could put some context there, like middle school teachers had brought it up in conversation and kind of their reasoning. I heard like a lot of people voted why change things because they didn't have that context, but just overall a comment that how much people appreciated being able to have that say. So definitely a popular thing.
Thank you. Other questions? Meg?
Is it always the case that elementary gets the Thursday and Friday, half-day Thursday, full day off Friday, and then the entire week of spring break, and middle school and high school don't have that? Or is that new? I can't remember.
You mean for conferences?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So just elementary school has that, and we can't do that in middle school
Middle school has it as well.
before spring break. Not on this calendar, though.
They have in the fall, sorry, not, you said spring.
So there's no spring.
Excuse me, yeah.
So
Don't tell Trustee Mercer.
no, I'm just harping on his back, because if I'm a parent that has The biggest thing that I heard that people didn't want the April is because they don't get that 2 extra days if it's elementary, because we moved, that gets rid of in elementary. When we move to April, you get the Thursday, Friday off in March in elementary, and then April you just have the one block, and they like that extended time. But then also if I have kids in multiple levels of school, having the exact same break is also really amazing. So I couldn't remember if that's how we always were.
Yeah, and there used to be fall conferences at the high school level as well. And that's disappeared over the years, but there's been discussion about bringing something to that effect back as well as spring middle school.
Other trustee questions? Yes.
Is this something that we could, if staff continued to advocate for a shift, is this something we could look at again next year for the following year?
We do, because it's in the contract. It's been negotiated with MEA that MEA has, the board, through myself and the calendar committee, consult with the association. So we have representatives from all levels on that committee, as well as administrators. So we do this every year. This has come up in the past. This is the first year we've really brought it forward, just given the number of people who have brought it up and the concern over that stretch of time. But we did make the conscious effort not to put a lot of information on the survey. We discussed it. It's a bit of a rabbit hole, and we wanted to leave it as neutral as possible, but your point's well taken.
Other questions? Can we one more? Oh yeah, sorry, Tina.
So have we ever thought of collaborating with the surrounding schools to understand how those families are impacted? Because I know that they follow what we set forward.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, I actually emailed all of them a little bit ago just to say, hey, it's on the agenda, but it looks like 58% want to keep it in March. And I got one interesting response, but we've talked about it, but they're really just going to try and follow along with whatever we do. They've reached out to the college before. College has said, well, MCPS makes the determination, and we're like, no, we don't. You guys build out your calendar like 3 years in advance. And so, yeah, they're interested, and they would probably follow suit with whatever we did. So yeah, there's a little bit of collaboration there, but they also have the autonomy to say, we're not even going to do a full week of spring break. We're going to break it up into like a 4-day weekend around Easter, and then we'll sprinkle in some other Fridays off or different things. So everybody's trying to do it just a little bit different sometimes.
Other questions? Okay, just for clarity, it's 58 to 42 for March to April overall numbers, right? Okay. So I need a motion for either March or April. Does anybody have a motion? Meg?
I motion that we move spring break to April.
All right, motion to move to April. Is there a second? Any seconds? Second from Lisa. All right. So we have a motion and a second for April. Any board comments? Oh, yeah. Arlene?
Well, I'm inclined to do what the parents have asked for in this particular case.
Other board comments? Oh, I'm sorry, Lisa.
Meg, would you like to speak to why?
I would love to. So I think my general consensus is kind of what Jenny said. People said, well, why move it? Don't fix it if it's not broken. The vast number of parents that I talked to were really excited about an April break because it's warmer and it more matched with what families across the country when their spring break is. Traditionally, elementary and public schools take a spring break in April. And as someone who works hand in hand with the school system and with school children, the 8 straight weeks of being in school is emotionally and physically taxing, and to break it up a little bit more, both for the kids' sake and for the staff's sake, I think when teachers get together to advocate for something and there's solid reasoning behind it, even if the percentages isn't by that much, I tend to lend myself to listen to what they're saying because it's them in the classroom all of April, all of May.
Love it. Jenny?
Yeah, the only parents that I really heard from, besides ones that did work at the university, were parents that were really concerned about soccer. I didn't hear about any other sport, but the soccer families were in a panic. Is that, maybe, Amy, could you talk about how that might impact like high school or middle school soccer? If we voted for April.
I'm assuming they're talking about club soccer, not high school soccer. High school soccer is in the fall. Yeah.
Oh, okay, so club soccer is not MCPS.
Nope.
Okay, well, they may have to shift.
Yeah, and I think right now Missoula is being run by club soccer in a lot of ways. I'm just going to say that for public comment. But yes, that concern was raised, extracurriculars and different things like that as well too. But club soccer is completely separate, and they have some tournaments in April sometimes.
You have something to say?
Yeah, I would just add that there was some concern expressed by some of our staff around shifting to April for high school activities. That's tennis, track, which is a big one, baseball, softball. It impacts, maybe a practice or a game, but even where spring break currently sits at, we're already into our practice season. So it would have to, I think practices start the second week of March. So it's going to have an impact one way or the other on that. But we do host quite a few events at the stadium, especially with track. So there is some impact there.
Lisa?
I have a clarifying question for Trevor. Last meeting, it sounded like to me some of the reasoning behind the staff request was to have spring break fall after third quarter. But it sounds like parent-teacher conferences happen at the current spring break, so are we having them before the quarter? Am I right? Did I remember that correctly?
I'm not exactly sure. The quarters they're not arbitrary, but we try to balance them out, and we can move them. And we've moved them really as a calendar committee. The proposals that you see are ones that we move for a variety of different reasons. But you were asking specifically about middle school or K-8. Is that correct?
Probably K-8, but probably middle school, because I think that was the question.
Yeah, so those are placed generally without consideration of spring break. It's more about the days during the quarter. How many days do you have in a quarter? And we try to balance those out.
Yep. Yeah, it was just that it would come in between third and fourth quarter as part of the reasoning from a teaching perspective. Yeah. So, okay, thank you.
Yep.
And then just one comment, if that's okay. Yeah, I really appreciate that we surveyed people. Thanks for doing that. It's really helpful to hear those responses and be able to consider them. I have also been really thinking about the teachers being in the classroom all day, every day, and really having a sense of, this being an important thing for them and seeing kind of those overall impacts. I also do wonder, the university, I think, used to be later because they had a longer winter session and school started later. And we're pretty powerful. We have a lot of folks. And so I wonder if UM would push backwards a little bit too eventually, right? It might take a couple of years. So those are the things I'm thinking about.
Other questions? I have one question. The splits by group, there's 3 groups. What were the splits? Was there any big splits? What were the splits like?
The students were 77 to 23 in favor of March, and that was 798 responses. The staff was 54 to 46 in favor of April, and the parents were 55 to 45. Is that what you were looking for?
That's perfect. So staff and parents, if we're looking at those two, it's pretty close to 50-50, right? Plus or minus?
It's pretty close.
Okay.
Pretty close.
Any more questions? Anything?
And we can always go back next year if it doesn't work. We'll just mess with it again.
All right, Meg. Okay, so we have a motion. So what do we do now? We have to vote on it. Public comment. Is there any public comment on this? I'm sorry. Public comment. All right, please come on. Thank you.
There we go. I guess the last one, so I heard right, the parents wanted what, March or April? Oh, sorry. Oh, just comment? I guess that would be it. I would say, of the three, you've gotten responses from the community. And what is determined by the community, I would say, would be the best response. So, sorry.
Thank you for that. Any other public comment? Seeing none. All right, we are going to vote. All in favor of the April schedule, please raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All opposed? Trustee Mercer and Kate, I'm sorry, I forgot your last name already, and Arlene are no's, and everybody else is yeses, so it carries. Thank you. Sorry I jumbled that up for you, Tracy. On to the next one. So we have to do 2 motions on that? I'm sorry. Okay, that was the high school because everybody was involved in that one. So now we're going to do elementary. That's a great question. That was the high school vote. Yes, ma'am. So now elementary motion. I need a motion from an elementary trustee. Jenny? April? You should say yes if you want to.
Yes, April.
Okay, moved by
Hoping that everyone
Trustee
adjusts
Walsh
with
for
us.
April. Second? By Trustee Witcher. All right. Sorry, guys. We're going to walk our way through this. Board discussion on that again. Cohen.
I mean, I'll vote. There's no way we can separate them, so that's just utterly implausible. So,
Other board discussion? Okay. Public comment for elementary. No public comment. Thank you. All right. All elementary trustees in favor, please raise your hand. All opposed? It's unanimous to all elementary trustees present. Thank you for that. All right. A new business. Am I right? Is that right? Yeah, new business. New business. Okay, new business. It's going to be the Pat show a little bit. So number 9A is approve a call for school election of elementary school trustees. So Pat?
All right, I'll sort of provide general background that apply to all these resolutions. So we talked about the election calendar probably a month ago, and that calendar requires that the board establish these resolutions calling for an election. And at this point, with the election on May 6th, the election can be canceled early April 4th, I want to say. Let's see, election by acclamation is April 4th, deadline for candidates to withdraw April 3rd, and cancellation April 4th. So there's time, and so these resolutions reflect placeholders. The Next opportunity for a board meeting is February 25th, which is the date that they're due, so we really can't push it till that time. So what we're asking the board to do is approve these resolutions calling for the election. We have the trustee election as one item. There's 3 elementary for 3 years. The other item is high school. There's 3 trustees in 3 different districts. There's District A is 3 years, District C is 2 years, and District D is 1 year. That's the term for the trustee. And then on the levy elections, there's the general fund in both the elementary and the high school. We still don't have firm numbers, so you'll have to certify ballots next month. So there'll be plenty of opportunity to talk about those. And we included the safety levy also as a placeholder, just to give our Budget and Levy Committee something to discuss and for you as a board to talk about too, so that stays on the table. Just so you know, the elementary general fund levy election, when we talked about the levies, the estimate was $225,000 in the elementary. That's at 1.2 mils. That works out to be $1.69 a year for a $100,000 home, and then $5 a year for a $300,000 home. The high school, it's $581,000. And again, we're not talking about the levy amounts. It's usually a question, just what does it look like? That's 1.75 mils. That's $2.36 per year on 100,000 and $7 on a 300,000. And then if the safety levy last time we ran it at $1 million, and that million was 3 mils, just over 3, $4 a year at 100,000. So these resolutions are to just set, to confirm for the elections office that these are the elections that we may run. And so that's the purpose, and happy to go into any detail more.
Thanks, Pat. Any questions for Pat? Oh, Lisa.
Sorry. Trustee Davey with lots of questions. Do we have any other levies that are available to us this year we could put a placeholder in the result of loss of title funding, things like that that are looking potentially more potential at this point, so that we have a placeholder?
You know, I guess what I would say is no. The high school side, the safety levy would be probably as solid of a one we could put out there. You could look at a building reserve levy with the idea that you move building reserve time expenditures to the building reserve. We ran one of those, so we have an active one that's only 2 years old, and we're doing that with sort of in the elementary district with the safety levy and the building reserve that passed. And then, of course, we have the STARS Act that we haven't talked about. So it's never a hard no, but these would be our recommendations as the full extent of the levies that we would think of running. I guess the STARS Act sort of had a positive day. It sounds pretty positive that it's going to pass. And in each district, that would be about $1 million each district that you would put at play. But understanding what you're saying, but I guess this would be our recommendation. And adding the safety levy on the high school kind of does provide that sort of preservation of something similar to what the elementary has.
Okay, can I have a follow-up? Yeah. Thanks for that. Is it possible, I guess, are there other levies that we're allowed to ask for? Because I know it's very complicated that like some levies are allowed certain years, some of them aren't.
It's a good question to clarify, because these are voted levies that we have to preserve. And so we'll come to the board in March with permissive levies. And permissive levies obviously aren't on the ballot, but they're ones that we'll estimate. And those permissive levies could have potential support or offsetting benefit. So we'll talk about adult ed, we'll talk about building reserve, we'll talk about debt service. Building reserve on the permissive side is expected to grow from the state contribution. At least that's the conversation now. So we've maxed that out. It's a matching type of thing. So it improves. It's very project driven. So I'm not sure that one would be a real solution to offset federal funds or costs that would be lost. Possibly the adult ed side with that permissive levy and
Okay.
the transportation fund.
And then can we do like a community school levy to help fund community school positions within the district, and then maybe provide some of that safety net stuff for things that our title schools are getting right now that really is like community school, safety net services, special ed.
Yeah, not sure what a community school levy, what you mean exactly.
Well, I just mean like, can we, do a levy that we name something?
Oh, yeah, it's a little different with schools because you have specific funds that you're limited to operate within. And so there's the 9 budgeted funds, and they all have those rules. And the rules really are addressing funding, how you fund it and what you expend it on. And so on the, yeah, that's not one I'd be familiar with within any of those voted funds. One area that we talk about as a board or that you talk about as a board and we discuss with the committee is excess special ed costs as a permissive levy. And those funds flow through the flex fund as a permissive levy.
Okay.
Flex, but that's another source of expenditure offset because you would offset special ed costs, and we're pretty close to the end at the high school. We'll do another analysis, and then on the elementary side, it's there's more room because we have the preschool program that we didn't fully levy last time. So that would be potential area, also fits within that permissive levy we'll talk about. It's the tuition fund.
Okay, thanks for clarifying that.
Trustee Witcher?
So where are we at emotionally as a board and as an administration when it comes to putting more of these levies up on the ballot? Have we done some market research about the viability of them passing? Have we looked into that at all?
No, I mean, I think what I would say, and again, go back to my initial comment that it's a placeholder, because I think that's part of the analysis that you guys will need to do. What I would, especially when you look at what the legislature might come back with, and I think it's a valid point you guys need to consider. I think when we've looked at general fund levies, to a large degree, we've advocated to the board that they run them each year because that's part of the funding formula, and you don't get to the 3% or the 2% or the 1.5% that they're providing as part of inflation without that voted levy. It's part of, I guess, the communication with our community that this is part of the funding formula. It's not it's not always a spot where you take a year off, I guess. And so we've had situations where we have taken a year or two off because the amount of the levy is so low. But what you hear when they talk about, hey, this is a 3% inflationary increase, it's not unless you run the voted levy. The safety levy, I think that's a totally different animal, honestly.
Have we talked to the city and the county to see if they have any potential levies? Like, we knew the fire levy was coming.
Right.
Do we have any idea of what they're doing yet?
I don't.
Yeah, and I haven't asked either. I think one of the things that we've talked about administratively is seeing where things shake out with the state legislature. If STARS Act passes, and there's some other potential funding sources in there, whether they'll pass or not, but that would be something that, as we're trying to weigh recommendations for the board, it comes back to that tax fatigue of our taxpayers, and if the governor stands at the podium and says, we've given more money than ever to school districts in Montana, that doesn't help us when we're trying to do things locally. But like Pat said, like that 3% inflationary increase, we only get 80% of it. We get 2.4% unless we run the voted levy. For some districts, then there was legislation that I thought was actually going to pass or make it out of committee. It didn't, was to remove that caveat out of that funding mechanism. No, you don't have, it costs more money to run the election for that extra 0.6% than it does than the money that you're actually receiving for some districts. So it's complicated, but I think we were talking about holding off on making any final recommendations. We wanted to really talk that through with the budget committee and then see where things were going to shake out from an overall funding picture.
Go Trustee Walsh.
Yeah, that House Bill 265, I think you're talking about Luke Miskevich, who as a former trustee brought that to the table. It still has potential to be untabled, I guess. But I just want to run my understanding past you, Pat. So the state, for our budget, the state gives us 80% of that. They say this is the max you can have. They provide 80%, and then it's upon us locally to ask the community to fund the last 20% of that through levies. And then I have more to clarify.
Yeah, and it's sort of is the answer. So you have when it fully shakes out, we're going to be 32%. When you look at the math calculation, Mike is totally right. It's 80% of the basic, 80% of the per A and B entitlement. The rest of the entitlements are all state, or the rest of the components are all state funded. And to calculate the max, 80% represents the base. So it is 80% of those two major factors. And so when you look at how you're funded, though, part of the base is funded locally. And so you add the 20% over base to the other permissive levy that's locally funded, so you work out to be 32% or thereabouts. And that number always kind of changes depending on how the state contributes towards guaranteed tax base aid. So it was really bad 2 years ago, horrible bad, and then this year is way better. So that contribution is depends on what they do right now at the legislative level, and they're talking about some adjustments. So I think we're going to see more of a guaranteed tax base contribution from the state.
Follow up. Is it true that last year when we ran our levies, the levies that the voters approved, they didn't end up paying all of that amount because of the way budgets shifted after the election? So just because voters vote on a levy doesn't mean that that's the full amount that they end up paying?
Yes, so that's true. And what it goes back to what I was just saying about your overbase levy amount, that voted part, that 20%, that will represent an increase. But what we experienced and did this year was the base portion went the other direction. It went down. So overall, you still have to vote the portion that's the overbase portion. But you're exactly right. At the same time, and we don't put on the ballot, oh, hey, by the way, your base levy just went down 200,000, so you're actually in a net positive position. Which I think the elementary was, the high school wasn't quite there because their budgets grew by so much. That's an exactly correct point.
Okay, last thing. Speaking to the county, I did just hear from a couple people at the county. They are also waiting on legislative action. There is a tourism tax that is going to hit the Senate soon. It doesn't have a Senate bill number, but they are hoping that if that's approved, taxpayers would see their property taxes fall, and that would help everyone putting anything on the ballot. So that's one to look for.
Vice Chair Walker Andrews.
Yeah, I have a question which I think might be very close to the question you asked. Because as I look at, and I have many times, special education and our costs, which are really high, and we have a federal law that says that we have to offer students with special needs a fair and equitable, et cetera, appropriate education. But if the Department of Education goes away, then we won't get the, as far as I can tell, the approximately 14% that they give us of the 43% that they're supposed to give us. And so we would be left holding everything, correct?
I think that's such a guess. I would hate to even guess because you just don't know. I mean, so you could, even if a department's gone, the funding, I don't know that means it's gone. You know, because so it's just way too much to speculate is what I would say. You're right about how much we're seeing in that 14% area. So you have, the ones that we really focus on are not just special ed, but the ones Lisa was referring to, whether it's title programs, free and reduced lunch subsidies. So yeah, there's millions of dollars that are federal funds that flow through the district.
Trustee Davey?
Thank you. I think that there is a credible threat that we will lose federal funding. I think all of the blueprint information we have suggests that both IDEA and, which, I mean, maybe it takes away the federal mandate, but we've been very clear that we plan to continue to provide public education to everyone. That IDEA and Title I are definitely on the chopping block. I do think, there's room, people will advocate like they did for Head Start and Medicaid, but I would much rather be safe than sorry. Since we have until the 25th to file, is there a way, if I were to make a motion, to find out how we could propose a placeholder levy in case we need to raise funds, that you could come back to us with, like, here is a way that we might be able to do it, or I looked at all the categories and there's no possible way?
I would really focus on a permissive levy, honestly, and I think the excess special ed piece, we're not going to be able to, even with, I mean, to think of a voted levy, it would be, if you look at that, sort of that sheet we went over last time, I mean, the building reserve, you still have to expend it for maintenance. And we couldn't find enough maintenance costs in the general fund to free it up to pay for Title I salaries, for instance. And so I think just looking at voted levies or thinking about voted levies, you have, yeah, I don't, I think they're really not a ton of great options. I mean, the general fund, you have none because you're capped. It's like the safety levy, you could go boost that on the elementary side and you could boost it on the high school side. But even there, just like the building reserve, there's only it still has to be spent on safety and security. And there's only so many of those types of expenditures, that Micah went over last go around, that in the general fund that really qualify. I think we would be looking at other sources in a big way. And I appreciate the way you're thinking about it, because they are placeholders. The worry that I have on the 25th is like it's due the 25th and your meeting is the 25th that night. I mean, that's why we're here now. It's not to have that be an issue. Yeah, it's not a real clear answer, because I think this is, in light of what the funding sources they're talking about at the state level is what, and it gets to Meg's point too, is like we're a little skittish about going to taxpayers on voted levies too.
Trustee Mercer?
I mean, so if Title I funding disappeared, we could not run a levy that said replace Title I funding. That's just not legally possible, right? And if we did, and if we passed a levy for $1 million, or it would be more than that, like $10 million, we could pass that levy, but we just wouldn't get any money, right? They wouldn't collect it, they wouldn't give it to us, right? It just wouldn't happen. So, and the safety levy that's on here is the one that failed, right? And so we're gonna try again, I'm all for that, but that's what that is. We were pushing the limits of shuffling funding around. So I guess, all that aside, like, there's the reserve fund. If there's a catastrophic failure of like federal funding, does that invoke any of the reserve stuff do we get into? I mean, we have the interagency stuff as our other like piggy bank there was some like doomsday money around for like a year and then hopefully things can be solved, but I'm just at a loss of what we could do beyond running the safety levy again, which is in here.
I agree with you on all those points. I mean, I think what we would be looking for is how do we incorporate the permissive levies to the extent that they're viable to backfill any portion of those costs, and then it's our one-time only sources that we've talked about at greater length last time, and how do we plug holes with it? And so I think there'd be other options than throwing out, just another voted levy that, yeah.
Okay.
Trustee Walsh?
I just want to check my understanding. If we have a levy category, so like safety, what's the elementary one called?
Safety.
Okay. That's something that the legislature has voted on as we can pass a levy. So we couldn't say like we want to refund all the art teachers back into each school. We're going to run an art levy because the legislature hasn't said you can run art levies. Okay. Is there a way to figure out, and this is probably a lot of work, so it's okay if it's not, but is there a way to figure out how much taxpayers actually spent like per $100,000 house on the levy? Because what they voted on isn't what they ended up spending. And I think that's a misconception of voters, that every year that's another $11, it's another $5, when in fact they may have not spent anything the year before.
Yes is the answer. Rarely is it nothing, because we're still increasing through permissive levies, and we're still adding to those levies. But it's something that we share, and it's something when you adopt budgets in August that we just try and show, and we try and show in graphs just where our mills go, and then our tax impact. And what's challenging about it is that at any time you have mills go down, which, see, that's really the uniqueness of us compared to other government agencies, is that if we levied the same mills that we levied the prior year, we're sitting on another $9 million, or $4 million, I think it was, but we don't. So we levy to dollar amounts, so our mills routinely go down. And you can't really say to a taxpayer, though, that, hey, your mills went down and this costs less, because at the same time you have that property tax value going up. So they're moving in different directions. So we're also careful about overstating that impact, because, but we'll look at all the budgeted funds, we'll look at where the mills went, and we'll look at the tax impact for sure. And we do look at that in the general fund. And if the formula stays intact, we would grow in a very small way in the permissive levy in both districts, the base levy right now. So, but we also anticipate pretty good growth in our transportation fund permissive levy, and then potentially our tuition levy for excess special ed costs. So, but yes, we can produce that.
Trustee Witcher.
So one question. So some of the Senate bills that are going forward, I think it's like 302 or something, it's talking about, or Senate Bill 204, if this does pass, and they're forcing us to sunset current levies or asking us to reapprove existing voter-approved property tax levies, how would that affect our school board budget?
Yeah, that would be interesting, because So I had mentioned before, and I'm going to just guess on the numbers, but let's say, that elementary over-base levy of $225,000 in the elementary. Well, our over-base levy right now is $8 million or somewhere in that vicinity. So our over-base levy continues year over year as long as we use it. And we use it because inflationary increases are in play, enrollment increases. The only time we don't use it is if our enrollment nosedives or we don't run a levy. And so, because what you can do under the law is you can preserve prior year budgets plus inflationary increases. So I don't know how that would look. I mean, you would probably have to go back and look at each pocket of years and which levies go back 20 years and which one just go back 5.
Safe to say it'd be pretty catastrophic.
Oh yeah, I mean, you look at 20% of a $40 million elementary budget and 20% of a $32 million high school budget. It's $15 million.
So definitely a very dangerous thing that's in the legislative session right now is Senate Bill 204.
Trustee Walsh.
Even more dangerous is Senate Bill 205, which, if it came into law, we wouldn't have been able to pass a levy for the past 10 years. Because 205 says that you don't just have to have a majority of voters that voted, you would have to have a majority of all the voters to have voted for your levy for it to pass. So if 51% of voters stay home, you could never pass a levy. So it gives the power to the non-voter. Something to contact your representative about.
Thank you, Trustee Walsh. Any other, Vice Chair Walker Andrews.
I just wanted to add to Trustees Walsh that I wanted to point out that people who run in primaries to be in the legislature never have what they're requiring us to have for a levy.
Great point. Any other questions? We've gone off the rails a little bit. We are all over the board, but it's good conversation, so thank you. So we are on 9A, which is approve the call, and this is an elementary action item. Approve call for a school election elementary school trustee. Do I have a motion? Moved by Trustee Hayes. I'm going to try this. I'm really going to try. Trustee Hayes. Second by Trustee Mercer. All right. Any other discussion? No? Public comment? No. All right. All elementary trustees in favor, please raise your hand. Opposed? It's unanimous. Tracy, thank you. All right. The next one is call for a school election for high school trustees. Pat, you want to say anything more, or you feel good about it? You feel good. Good. So this is a full board motion, and it's an action item. Do I have a motion for this? Moved by Trustee Wake, seconded by Vice Chair Walker Andrews. Man, that's a mouthful. Any discussion? Any public comment? All right, all in favor, please raise your hand. Opposed? It's unanimous to all trustees present. All right, the next one is call for school election for elementary general fund levy. Nothing, Pat? Okay. Do I have a motion? Trustee Mercer, moved by Trustee Mercer, seconded by Trustee Walsh. Man, I got the last names down. You like that? All right. Any trustee comments? Any public comment? All right. I can see none. All those in favor? This is elementary only. You're right. Yep. Did I mess that up? No. Okay. Good. Elementary only. Okay. All opposed? Unanimous to all elementary trustees present. All right, the next one is a full board motion for school election for high school general fund levy. Do I have a motion? Trustee Davies, that moved by Trustee Davies, seconded by Vice Chair Walker Andrews. Any trustee discussion? Any public comment? All right, all in favor, please raise your hands. Opposed? Unanimous to all trustees present. Approve call, the next one's approve call for a school election for high school safety levy. Yes, so anything you want to say else on the safety levy? Pat? Nope, you're good? Okay. Placeholder, still a placeholder, okay. Motion for this? Moved by Trustee Davies, second by Vice Chair Walker Andrews. Thank you. Trustee comments? Public comment? All those in favor, please raise your hand. Opposed? Unanimous to all trustees present. All right, on to personnel negotiations and policy. We'll approve the personnel report. Trevor?
Nothing to add.
Thank you, sir. All right, do I have a motion from there's two, right? Yeah, there's two. This is the elementary side. Do I have a motion from an elementary trustee? Moved by Trustee Hayes. Second by Trustee Walsh. Any trustee comments, questions? No? Any public comment? No? All elementary trustees in favor, please raise your hand. All opposed? Unanimous to all elementary trustees present. All right, secondary. Do I have a motion for full board? Moved by Trustee Davy. Second by Trustee Walsh. Any trustee comments? Any public comment? All those in favor, please raise your hand. 1, 2, 3. All opposed? Unanimous to all trustees present. All right, next we are going to go into the item 10, which is Board of Trustees, and the topic is our superintendent's contract and terms. And I am going to turn the floor over to Trevor to discuss this.
All right, thank you. You're actually receiving two copies of contracts. One is for 2024 through 2027, and the other is for 2025 through 2028. And we'll start with the 2004 one. But just a little background before we begin. This is kind of an unusual situation because we're actually discussing and asking you to negotiate and approve 2 years' worth of compensation for Superintendent Hill. So normally this is done annually. For whatever reason, it was missed last year. So we're in this odd situation now where we have to talk about and approve 2 years' worth of contracts. What helps me in this situation is when I write down 2023/24, and then I write down 2024/25, and you give yourself 5 school years on a sheet of paper in front of you. Just as we talk and go through this, it can get really, really confusing. So what I'm going to do is talk a little bit about the 2024-25. If you recall, Superintendent Hill began in the 23-24 school year. So the year that we missed was 2024-25. And all that he has requested for that particular school year due to district finances was an increase in the tax sheltered annuity, which amounts to a total of $5,000. You'll see that represented in number 5J within the contract. And as we go through the next section, I will reference different components of the section for you to highlight. For 2025-26, there's a few more changes. So, as you open up that contract, I'm going to be referring to the compensation section, number 4, and then going down on number 5, for example. So starting off with number 4, I just want to point out section 4 where it says compensation. This is where it talks about the salary is, for each year, you negotiate the compensation each year. So you might hire him for 3 years, but each year you negotiate. And again, just to restate, you missed a year. So we're doing 2 right now. In section number 5B, you'll see the number of personal days will go from 10 days to 15. And just for your information, I have the information for other AA superintendents. And we have that sort of broken down high-low. This is definitely in the low range for AA superintendents. It's not the lowest, but probably the second to lowest in terms of personal days. In section 5E and F, this is not an increase in money. This is really a change in procedures that's being applied to a number of positions across the district. And essentially, by providing a base allowance, we're eliminating the time and energy it takes to process cell phone usage and mileage. And that's already in effect for a good number of folks who travel around throughout the day who are being held responsible during the weekends for contact. So there's really nothing different there for other folks in the district. Number 5G, this represents the 2024-25 increase of $5,000. So it used to be $833 per month, which equated to $10,000 annually, and now it's at $1,250, which equates to $15,000. Number 5J is new to Mr. Hill's contract. That's a new section, but I can tell you that this is not new to education. Given the high turnover rate of superintendents in the state and across the country, a severance incentive is being added to help retain superintendents. So therefore, if Mr. Hill severs with the district after 5 years, he'll receive a $15,000 payment. Essentially, it incentivizes sticking around, which is the hope for many districts and superintendents. And then the last part is the salary. So next year in the 2025/28 school year contract, you'll see a new number in there. You'll see $197,000, whereas before it was $190,000. And this equates to a 3.4% increase, which is similar to what everybody else received in the district last year. However, again, this is a 2-year contract, so it's really 1.7, 1.7. And again, it puts Mr. Hill's salary roughly in the mid-range of AA superintendents. The much smaller districts of Helena and Kalispell and Butte, he's at the low end of the districts more comparable to our size. And just an FYI, as you're considering this, the superintendents are up for negotiations this year as well. So the data that I have is for this school year. So they're going to renegotiate and then get a bump. And probably some of you have heard what other districts are giving their superintendents. So you're going to be right back into a lower level for our superintendent next year. So that's a general summary. What I'm hoping you can do is discuss and hopefully approve a 2024-27 contract, and then immediately essentially void that out by approving a 2025-28 contract, which gives an additional year to Superintendent Hill. A lot of information.
Thanks, Trevor. Questions or comments? Trustee Walsh, then Trustee Mercer.
Thanks. Trevor, that 3.4% increase spread over 2 years, 1.7, 1.7, is that less than the teacher's increase? And can you speak to what the teacher increase was?
Yeah, and I'll probably have to lean on Pat a little bit. Essentially, we shot for 3% last year. And what we did was we gave dollar amounts to each group. So it wasn't exactly 3% for everybody. Again, if you remember, we wanted to close the gap between the lowest paid and the highest paid. So when you give 3% up here, it's more money. 3%, it's less money. So we gave a consistent amount to help level that out a little bit. But that's basically, it was roughly around 3% for everybody. Quite a bit more for some, but I don't think many people got less than that. And Pat, I would lean on you.
Yeah, excuse me, we did an average increase, and including the steps, you're 5-6% each district. One was over 6, one was over 5.
Trustee Mercer, you still have a question?
Yeah, what is, I guess 2 questions. One, do you guys do comp time, that sort of thing, or is this like a salary? And what is personal leave? It's not vacation, it's not sick leave, it's something else?
Yeah, it's personal leave.
I don't get personal leave. What is personal leave?
You don't. It's whatever you want to use it for. You want to go sledding?
Well, that's what vacation is.
We use the term personal leave mostly for all of our administrative groups. That's just a term we're using.
Do you guys do comp or no? Or
we don't do comp. He's an exempt employee.
Okay.
So he's on call all the time. So.
Other questions or comments? Trustee Walsh?
What on 5G, what is to a TSA? What is a TSA? Okay. And what is that?
It's a retirement savings plan.
Oh, okay. Great for that.
Trustee Davy?
Thanks, Chair. I just have a question about the severance. Is that something that we pay if we, regardless of whether the choice is of the board or of the superintendent to leave?
Yes, when you sever with the district. So either way.
Okay, and is there any, I mean, I don't see it, but I want to ask, if the superintendent signs a 260-day contract and then leaves, is there any penalty for breaking that contract?
Not generally. Contracts are typically for the employee. If he broke a contract, obviously you could report him to the Office of Public Instruction, and they can do with it what they will. But we have people that break contracts all the time.
So there's no guarantee, I guess, in like that it's a 260-day contract and they're signing up for 260 days of being here, is just my clarifying question.
Correct. I guess ultimately he could do 255 and blow out of there.
But the district would not be obligated to pay me for the 5 days. So they're only obligated to pay me for the days that I work of the 260.
Trustee Walsh?
Sorry, last one. 5J, that new section, in our teacher's contract, do we have some sort of retention incentive similar?
We do not.
Trustee Mercer?
there are ways in which salary goes up over time, right? I mean, this is just a longevity pay, really.
Yes, and an encouragement to stick around longer. Teachers get steps and lanes. So like as Mr. McHugh said, we might increase something by a certain percentage, but they're also guaranteed that step. Similar. Some of our groups have had longevity language in their agreements.
Other questions? No further. Oh, sorry, Trustee Davy.
Point of order. Am I allowed to make a motion to amend a contract?
Yeah, I mean, ultimately, this is a negotiation. You're negotiating with the superintendent, so you certainly could.
Okay. Then I would like to move in both of the contracts that we remove J number 1. I think that if our goal is to be able to retain somebody, that we don't want to be offering severance at 1 year, if that's the goal of it. And so I would like to see us offer severance once we get to year 4 and 5.
I haven't called for a motion yet.
Oh, sorry.
That's all right. That's okay.
So that's what I was asking. Point of order, can I make a motion?
You can make a motion, yeah, but let me make sure nobody else has any questions left. Any other questions? All right, now I look like a jerk.
Well, I do have a question.
You do have a question. Okay, go ahead, Trustee Walsh.
Well, it's if we did make some sort of change like that, is it possible to make J2 10,000 to further incentivize a longer stay?
Yeah, I can, go ahead.
I just want to speak to it real quick, since it's my negotiation. And I think I hear what you're saying is, like, are we paying Micah $5,000 if he leaves after a year? And the answer is no. I have to fulfill the 3 years of the original contract in order to be eligible for that. So I'm not asking for, this is purely longevity. So 3 years was my original contract, so starting that point and then moving forward. So with a fourth contract or a fifth contract, those other amounts would come into play. So I don't know if that changes anything from the discussion, but just so you're clear on what I was asking for there.
And I'll just add too that as someone that this is my third superintendent working with, I've been on the board for 5 years, and Rob had just got on the board, or just became our superintendent right before I got here. Longevity is a thing, and when we went through finding Micah and searching, for those of us that were here, it's not easy to find a superintendent out there. In fact, it's really expensive and really hard, and the state of Montana does not pay super well. It looks like a big number, but if you compare it to other states, it's not a big number. So incentivizing our superintendent to stay here, it's a small price to pay, in my humble opinion, for us not to have to go through the headache of it. The other thing that if we change the terms, these are Micah bringing her terms, and it is our right to change the terms, he has the right to reject it as well. So that's something to think about. It's within his rights. So I would just say that, I sympathize and I hear what you're saying, and it's fully your right and the board's right to vote on that. But just keep in mind that it is difficult to find superintendents out there, and good superintendents. We have 2 great assistant superintendents over there, even though Vinny's a little iffy sometimes. But so anything that can stick, if we're happy with, anything that can stick this position for as long as possible, I'm always in favor of. Trustee Davey.
Yeah, and I would say my intent is definitely that I don't want to be doing a superintendent search right away, right? That I do want it to be actual longevity, and I love the potential friendly amendment, once we would get to that place, to then move that $5,000 into more service. I'm wondering if I can ask Trustee Mercer for his expertise in reading this, because when I read it, it really does look like, if we're looking at like 24, 25, that there's, and I know $5,000 isn't enough to like quit your job, but that they, like, in theory, a superintendent could quit, and if they took this document in, I mean, I definitely read it that you get $5,000 after a year, and I really appreciate you clarifying your intent.
Trustee Mercer, you want to give your expertise?
I do not have any, I'm not a contractor. I will say that I read that the same way as 1 to 3. I would propose we strike the 1 in the dash. I think that would be, I think the superintendent said that he intended 3. I think it would just be a lot clearer if it said 3 years of service, 4 years, 5 years. I think the 1 dash is, it caused me to read it the same way. That was slightly confusing. So.
Fair. That's a great point. I will say, separate from your question, BIA did look at all this, correct? So BIA's looked it over for legality purposes, just so everybody feels good about that. Trustee Gamble.
Hi, everybody. It's my first time. I have 2 questions. One is, when we go under contract with you, Micah, what's the chunk of time usually? Is it 1 or 2 year chunks, or until we amend it again?
Yeah, so the original contract was for 3 years, and then last year, the only thing we settled from a contract perspective was an additional year. So that is what's represented in that 24 to 27, so that's the 3 years. And then in the 25 to 28, that's asking for an additional year. So it's pushing me out to it'll be my 5th consecutive contract by that point. The board evaluates me every year in January, and the reason why we do this in February is because if we can't reach agreement and I say, fine, I'm out, then that gives the board time to engage in a search and try and hire a superintendent in time for the following school year. That's not my intention at all. I actually love it here. And so what the contract stipulates, if you go back to, and this is kind of boilerplate, but if you go back to the term in item 1, the district may by specific action with consent of the superintendent, extend the termination date of the existing contract to the full extent permissible by state law. That's 3 years. So that's really what's happening is we already approved the one for the year. We didn't approve any of the terms within that for compensation, of which I basically just said deferred compensation, do $5,000 into the tax sheltered annuity, which is actually cheaper for the district because the district doesn't have to pay taxes on it. I don't see any benefit or anything from that until I retire, and then the additional days were basically it. Hopefully that was a long answer, but
I think that's great.
okay.
But actually now I ended up with a few more questions. First of all, this is a statement for number 4 where we talk about compensation. The way I'm sort of reading this really is a cost of living allowance, which is not even necessarily a raise. It's how much it costs to live. So it'd be interesting to me, I don't know who would have a statement on this, if it would be Pat or whomever the lawyer is, statement in the contract that coincides more with the year of what is the cost of living allowance that comes within that year. Because we're throwing out 1.7% right now, which is an average of what cost of living increases can be. It can range anywhere from 1% to 4%. So in a way, I'm kind of advocating for you. That's just a statement there.
Trevor, you want to answer that?
Well, I'm not going to answer it exactly. I'm sure Pat could tell you the cost of living increases. It's probably not even close. And what I would say about the percentage, and I'm going to say this, partly for Superintendent Hill's sake, but in looking around the state and looking at salaries, Hamilton with 1,500 kids just hired a superintendent, and they're paying $160,000 for 1,500 kids. Alberton just hired a superintendent, which they collapsed a high school principal position with, and it was $130,000. My only fear is, again, that it's always uncomfortable for a superintendent to ask for a raise. He's in the uncomfortable situation, not his creation, that you're doing it for 2 years. 1.7 and 1.7 is a little low, and I think right now he's about in the middle in terms of base salary for his colleagues around the state. But again, after they negotiate this year, he's gonna fall further behind. So part of the reason I say that is because someday Superintendent Hill won't be here, and you'll be hiring somebody else, and it's hard to change what that salary and that package is.
No, it's a good point, and just for a point, I read an article in the news from June of last year when Billings went through this, and the Billings superintendent had a 5.68%. That's probably not perfect, but it's pretty close to that raise for 1 year. So that's Trustee Mercer.
I mean, when we were searching, we were definitely concerned we were not paying a competitive rate. And I think part of the way we bridged that was in the TSA to kind of bring it up higher without changing the salary number. So that, for me, supports this. I think my other check is I think there is a percentage level that we need to stay consistent with the rest of changes to district staff. I think this more than stays within changes to other district staff, so it meets that threshold for me, so I'm supportive of it, I guess.
And just to clarify, the average cost of living increase is actually 5.9% per year across the country, and in Missoula, it's actually 3 to 5% right now. So far below what we're giving Superintendent Hill. Not to make you feel bad. We're giving him 1.6 per year, and it's more.
You said far below.
Yeah, yeah.
I think just, as I went through kind of this process, and I talked a little bit with board leadership about, what goes on in what I might negotiate for. I'm very sensitive to the fact that I have to do this publicly, that it'll probably be on the front page of the Missoulian, and I'm compensated well. It's not about that, and I recognize that, and I know that there are going to be staff in our district who look at this and say, I can't believe, that what does that guy even do all day? I mean, there's always going to be that kind of pushback. And so I'm super sensitive to it. I'm super sensitive to the fact that this board went through grueling reductions last year. And so for me, I love my job. I want to continue. It's not about all the money, but I also recognize that within my colleagues and the responsibilities that we have for 9,500 students and 1,500 employees, and the buck stops here. It's a fair. I feel like it was fair. So I'm not asking for more. I appreciate those who have said it's not even keeping up with cost of living increases, those kind of things. But I also recognize I'm the most highly compensated employee of the district, and I'm comfortable.
Other questions? All right, so we're going to do you want 2 votes, Trevor? All right, so we're going to start with the 2024 or 2024-2027 contract. Do I have a motion of some sort? Trustee Davies?
Yeah, I would like to move to amend this contract to get rid of the 1 dash in section J1.
Excellent. Do I have a second? Second by Trustee Hayes. Board comments. Trustee Mercer.
Question, are we, no question. Are we, is this just the adopted, are we amending it and then we'll vote on it? Or is this just the whole thing right here as proposed?
This is the motion, so we're voting on the 24 to 27 with that change.
When we say yes, it will just adopt it with that change, okay.
And then he's going to have to, this is a negotiation, so he's going to have to be okay with that. Yeah. Do you want, is that okay with you?
Can I consult with myself for a minute?
Yeah, you can.
I'm good.
He's good. Okay, so he's good with the change. All right, so any other trustee comments? Trustee Walsh.
Well, I just would like to say what a wonderful, collaborative, intelligent group this is to work with, including Micah. And I hope we all stick together for quite a few years.
Any other comments? I just want to make one comment. It's important for our school district to have stability at the top. It's incredibly important, not just with our superintendent, but our assistant superintendents and the whole staff here in the building. Even though this sounds a little weird, the superintendent's contract allows for us to do the right things by other staff as well, because the superintendent's the head of the school district. He runs the school district. So it allows us to compensate and continue to compensate every employee in MCPS, hopefully appropriately, and make sure we retain our best talent, because retaining best talent is everything for us, right? If we're turning over good talent, we're doing something wrong. So, okay. Public comment. Anybody have a public comment? Seeing none. So all in favor of the 2024-2027 contract with the change of taking the 1 dash out of 5J, please raise your hand. Opposed? That it passes as all trustees present. Now, on to the 25-28 contract. Do I have a motion for the 25-28 contract? Trustee Davey.
Yes, thanks, Chair. I would also like to move to amend this contract, section J1, to remove the 1 dash.
Very good. Second? Trustee Mercer. Comments? Trustee comments? Public comment? Oh, I'm sorry. Trustee Davey.
Just a quick point of order. I do wonder if we should vote on each motion separately, because I actually have a second motion I want to make about this contract.
A second motion for the contract?
Yeah, and I guess just in my experience, like, you vote on the amendment before you vote on the whole thing. But I can propose my second amendment, and if they're both accepted as friendly, then we can vote on it totally.
Tracy, should she put all of her? All in one motion? Okay, so go ahead and put your other in there, and we'll see if I have a friendly amendment.
Okay, thanks. I will say this with a small comment. I am continually in the position of raising my own salary, managing other people whose salaries I have to bring up along with my own. And I really respect what Superintendent Hill has said about recognizing the finances of the district, plus where his compensation lies. And really recently, we have gone through and done like a whole regional rescale and really looked. And actually, we base our pay, this is going to sound very self-serving, but we do base our pay typically across the whole world on what teachers, principals, superintendents make and look at all those averages. So I did actually recently look at all those averages for us. And so I would like to amend this contract to provide an even $200,000 for the next year.
All right. Trustee Mercer, do you accept that friendly amendment? Trustee Mercer says yes. Tracy? So excellent. So we'll go back through any comment, any public comment. All right. All trustees in favor, please raise your hand.
I just want to make sure I'm doing it in the
Uh-oh. It's J, compensation, yeah. It's now 200. So 4 is, instead of 197, is 200. So all in favor, please raise your hand. All opposed? Unanimous to all trustees present. And the time is 7:50 and we are adjourned.